What's up, everybody? Welcome to Strength Solutions Podcast. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, and turn on your notifications for us. Then our strengthsolutionspodcast.com. We have free blogs, free guides, and programs for purchase. Strength Solutions Podcast, if you want to ask us future fitness questions. And social media, Strength Solutions Podcast on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Okay, you know what? You know what everybody wants?
What does everybody want?
Want to build size and muscle.
Get huge.
They want to get huge, just like you, Nathaniel. And I'm here to tell you how it's done.
Tell me.
And what's important. So I'm going to talk about the pros and cons and what people do of each. So this first one is like, you want a novel stimulus, right? So when you're a beginner, you could get this however you want. That's why you could have the worst training method and build muscle correctly.
Yeah.
Or you see people who are veterans and they're like, oh, I've been doing the 3 to 5 rep ranges, but now I'm doing 12 to 15 reps and I'm building muscle. Well, it's not so much the rep range that's causing it. It's the novel stimulus to the body. There's no perfect rep range. It's about how close do you push yourself to failure and leave reps on reserve and be able to go at it again the next time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of get stuck, right? Or they'll be like, well, once I finally switched, that's when I started building muscle. And this was, everybody should be doing this rep range because that's when I got the most progress or whatever. For example, right now, for the longest time I was lifting within that 3 to 5 rep range. And then now I'm working on more endurance and kind of working on a higher rep range, changing up my programming a whole bunch. And I've been doing some body scans every once in a while. And this is the first time in a long time I've seen my muscle mass go up. Which is funny because doing these workouts, I'm like, oh man, dude, like I'm gonna get weaker. I'm not lifting as heavy anymore. Blah blah blah. But it's showing that my muscle mass is increasing. Is it because endurance training is better than strength training? No, it's just because I haven't done training like this in a few years, and so it's gonna make a difference.
And people forget there's different types of muscle fibers in the body, the way your body adapts to different things. I think the big problem when it comes to novel stimulus is people changing the stimulus too much.
Too often.
Every day they do something different. It's like go through phases.
Yeah.
Go through 6 to 8 weeks of heavy training, 6 to 8 weeks of endurance, 6 to 8 weeks of a little bit more cardiovascular, mixed in some strength. And you'll get better results that way.
Yeah. And like stick with it. I think, like you said, too many people get impatient or they become worried, like in my case, if I didn't have a goal that we were headed towards, I probably would have stopped doing this already because I'm like, no, I don't want to. I want to make sure I'm still lifting heavy and getting strong. And I probably would have just switched back. And I think not enough people give going into a new phase enough time to actually make that change to see the difference happen.
Correct. And then the next principle is frequency. This one is probably the most mind-boggling for people. Mm-hmm. And the good part about frequency is you could hit this muscle group pretty much every day. You just have to hit it in different intensities, right? Mm-hmm. So frequency and intensity kind of goes together. And so the more frequent I hit a muscle, the more activation, the more I send a signal to the muscle that I wanted to grow. Mm-hmm. And for example, I can hit my legs 5 days a week easily, but I'm gonna have to have a higher intense day, a lower intense day. And the biggest issue people have is hitting it frequently, but too high intense.
Every single time. Yeah. I think that's a huge issue too. It's like, and I think, like you said, they kind of go hand in hand and they kind of move along with each other. The more frequency I have, the lower my intensity is going to be, right? The less frequency I have, the higher my intensity can be. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm going 3 days a week, I can maybe squat, deadlift, and hip thrust each day and go pretty hard, right? Each time. Mm-hmm. But if I'm working out 5-6 days a week, well, you can't go into the gym and go till failure every single day. You got to be able to manage it.
You could do the squat, hip thrust, and deadlift. Just the days in between, maybe you're doing more like the cable kickbacks or you're doing these other movements.
Or doing leg extensions or something like that, right? Something a little less damaging, but still continuing to send that adaptation signal.
Mm-hmm. And then the next one is range of motion. Mm-hmm. So some people believe 90 degrees is the best.
Uh-oh.
Yes, 90 degrees can help you. Right. But also full range of motion, right? Also, it's not just range of motion of the exercise, but let's say I am doing a chest fly and I'm holding at the very bottom in the stretch position where typically you can kind of get a little bit more muscle, I guess, quote unquote tears, right? And to rebuild the body, and uses end ranges of motion to help develop muscle a little bit more, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make, especially in terms of range of motion. Some of these exercises kind of focus purely on that eccentric spot, you know, or that's the more important area of the exercise. Like you said, a chest fly, I think a dumbbell pullover is another really good one where the stretch is kind of that important piece, right? And getting it down to that position, then holding it. And if you're not getting through that full stretch, right, if you're cutting your range of motion just slightly early, then you're leaving some of the exercise on the table, you know, or you're maybe not even getting to the point of the exercise that where it elicits a response. And so I think range of motion is a great way of also increasing intensity, right? If you're not ready to get to the next weight, then maybe you should try increasing your range of motion, right? First. And that's another way to progressively overload that I think a lot of people don't think about, you know, they just think weight or time or attention or whatever, but increasing that range of motion and an exercise that maybe you're not following all the way through can be a great way to progressively overload as well.
Yeah. And then another great way is, and I think this is underrated, is changing the style of training which you're doing, right? So maybe like for 6 months, you have a powerlifting block, and then the next 6 months is a bodybuilding block. Well, the powerlifting block affects the bodybuilding block by being able to output more. And the bodybuilding block allows you to be more connected. And then when you go back into the powerlifting block, you can output even more, right?
Yeah.
And so, and that's just a simple version of it. You could go into strongman, different things like CrossFit, Olympic lifting, but each block will affect the other block.
And I think this kind of goes hand in hand with like the novel stimulus, right? Like if you're a power lifter and you only ever power lift, you know, if you're plateauing or if you're doing something, then maybe it's time to train training styles, right? Completely, not just going over a different rep range or something like that, but changing the style of training completely. Like, hey, if I'm powerlifting a lot and I feel like I'm getting really, really stiff, you know, like you go into mace training, right? Like you've been talking about, or using clubs, trying to get more movement and mobility back. And then you go back into that style of training and you're better. Right. Or you've gained more muscle or more control or whatever it is. But these are all super, super good ways to build size that aren't just getting more protein, taking creatine, getting on some supplement or something like that. You know, these are all great ways to do that without having to do anything else, but just change the training.
How many times have you gone from like a frontal style to a transverse style of training and then go back into your frontal style of training and you're like, whoa, I'm way stronger?
I mean, this is a good example right now, kind of what we're doing. You know, I've been doing so much like, you know, horizontal plane or things like that, and only focusing on those like compound movements that are pretty much up and down, right? Like that's the only way they move. But now, since we're going into some more dynamic training, I've got to pull a sled, I've got to push a sled, you know, there's lunges, there's all of these different types of dynamic movement. And I can feel the transfer into like my squat. I feel more stable. I feel stronger. I feel more symmetrical. I haven't tried lifting maximally, like really at all. I did a heavy deadlift the other day, but that was just kind of messing around. But even then I was surprised that I was able to actually do that deadlift after taking such a long period out. And I felt good, you know, for being that far out and getting back to like a heavier deadlift. I was like, I didn't feel too bad. You know, I think I felt like my back has felt a lot better. I don't feel like as tight or in pain anymore. You know, I think it just needed the break.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need that break.
Yeah.
Did you know testosterone does more for you than just help you build muscle?
Explain. What do you mean?
So they did a recent research where they show that testosterone helps you with inclusion and exclusion socially, right?
Yeah.
And so being at a heightened state of testosterone, especially for guys, typically helps them be more social. Right. And it just has to do with testosterone is a big like confidence booster, right?
Yeah.
It makes you just feel better. And this is not just for men, it's also for women. And I was also listening to a podcast about like dopamine. And a lot of times we talk about like, oh, it's because I'm getting these dopamine hits. And the way dopamine works is not because it's good. It's because it's going to be better than what it was, right? So if I look at the phone and I look at the same thing, I get bored, right?
Yeah.
It needs to be something new. And that's why I like TikTok and stuff where the dopamine hits really heavy.
Yeah.
Right. But dopamine does more than just the excitement of it, right? It plays a role like in Parkinson's disease, right? That's why they do like lipodopamine and stuff like that. And so when we simplify these hormones, I think we do a disservice to it.
Yeah.
Just like when we simplify exercises and we kind of do a disservice. Yes, it's simple, but it's also complex.
Mm.
And I was just thinking about it the other day. Like, I'm literally doing a single leg RDL. This person needs this cue. This person may need that cue. And it makes a world of a difference just depending on the individual's needs.
Right. And that like complexity that you're talking about, like a lot of my clients, you know, I had a client the other day. We were talking about deadlifting, and she was like, you know, I've been told so many different things about deadlifting. I don't really know when I'm supposed to stop. Like when I'm coming up through that top piece, am I supposed to extend all the way through? Like, you know, kind of hyperextend almost. Am I supposed to stop early because I have some back issues? Should I, you know, whatever. And I was like, okay, look, I was like, number one, it's going to sort of just depend on you, right? Individual, what feels best. And I was like, you know, in my opinion, I think there's this, I think there's that, and all of these things, right? And we have to find out what's going to work best for you in this deadlift, right? Mm-hmm. And I can generalize a deadlift and make it really simple, but there's also that complex issue, right, that we're talking about just in terms of that end range of motion. And coming back to like the testosterone thing, it's, you know, we kind of say like, oh, it's going to help you in bed. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to have more energy. You're going to be not so fatigued and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yes, these are sort of these broad sort of general things, but I can explain, I can testify to this, especially like I've said, I think to me, the biggest change I had getting on TRT was a mental change. Mm-hmm. Not even like physically so much or any like, you know, sex drive or libido. Those were things that did change. But mentally, there was such a big shift in like the way I thought about myself, the way I thought about other people. And I think it really did make a huge difference in terms of like my social interactions. I went from being so like kind of quiet and shy and stuff like that to just feeling more confident, like you said. And that's things that I think that we don't really kind of focus in on, or that people don't realize could be a sign of them having low testosterone.
Yeah. And then earlier today, it kind of makes me think about like the complexities of things too, about like Eastern versus Western medicine. Had a conversation with somebody and they're talking about how someone they know was just prescribed antibiotics, and overall, antibiotics are not a bad thing, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the way they're prescribed, right?
Yeah.
And so this person had a viral issue, and they still prescribed antibiotics. And I know during our parents' generation, it was like, here's antibiotics for this, here's antibiotics for this, like to solve every issue. And then they end up having gut issues when they're older. And I think when we look at Western medicine versus Eastern medicine, essential oils, and I thought about the essential oils one because you sent it for the what's that game called?
It was a meme,
Operation, right?
But it was Operation. There, like, there's a new operation where you don't take out any of the stuff, you just put essential oils in the little spot. It's so stupid.
Yeah, and they all have their places. That's the problem, and it goes back to, again, like it's more complex. Like if I have a busted knee, I'm going to go get surgery. I'm not going to put some essential oils on it and be like, oh, it's okay.
Help. Yeah.
But it's all about knowing the individual. But where I do like Western medicine, and I think people give it a bad rap because it doesn't help prevent disease.
Yes.
But what it does is allow you to live longer, and it allows you to, if there's an emergency, it'll help you. Or if you just really need something and you can't get it through the essential oils or Eastern culture of disease prevention, like, oh, let me just get some ginger. Well, that's when Western medicine is very, very good. Eastern medicine is real good to prevent like actual diseases, because it's talking about using your body to really focus on lifting, moving, eating well, regenerating the body itself.
Yeah.
But where it falls short, if there's something that happens to me, I'm going to go and I have this, like, let's say I have a viral infection and it's really bad. I'm not going to sit here and just take the viral infection and then all this stuff's happening to me. I'm going to need an antiviral at a certain point and use that medication. And at the end of the day, you can decide what you want to do, right? For me, I lean on sometimes I need this and sometimes I need that. If you want to be more all Western medicine, just understand the shortfalls. If you know you want to be more all Eastern medicine, you understand the shortfalls as well.
I agree. You know, I have a lot of clients who like really believe in sort of the Eastern medicine type of thing. And, you know, they're always talking to me about like, have you tried taking this, like, you know, herb or whatever, like it really helps with this and whatever. And unfortunately I haven't, because like culturally, like you said, like in Western America and things like that, we don't really do all of that. But it's not to say that I don't think that there's any benefit to it, or I would like to try some of that stuff, and there's also total research, right, about like ashwagandha or things like that clearly have some sort of impact on what they say they do, right? But like you said, Western medicine is pretty unrivaled in the post, issue, right, of whatever it is. It's going to be top notch, but in the preventative side, it could be a little better.
But also, you need to get back to work. I'm going to use Western medicine. Like, I need to get back. I can't just wait this out.
Right.
Because Nathaniel wants to be a furry in the classroom. Like the Furries Act. Yeah. That's wild, right?
Furries Act, yeah. Because what were they saying? They were saying that there's like teachers, I guess, or schools that are like including litter boxes in classrooms.
Oh, I found out why they would.
Oh, okay. What was that?
So it's not here in Texas, but some places but they didn't have litter boxes for kids to literally like pee and act like a furry.
Yeah.
It was in case if there's a school shooting and little kids can't hold it in.
Oh, wow.
So they don't pee on themselves. They could pee in the litter box.
Wow. Okay. It's like a puppy pad.
It is like a puppy pad, a human puppy pad.
Yeah, but they were saying that they were doing this to like encourage students who like felt like they identified like an animal or whatever to do that. And I think I do remember at some point us talking about this. I think that did actually happen somewhere. There was like
one in a million,
one specific case of this going on, and then it just like blew up into this whole thing of like
teachers don't have time for that.
Yeah, teachers don't got time for that shit. Like I doubt that. That story may not even have been real,
Yeah.
But it's just the way it's reported or whatever it is, and it's just kind of like sad. It's funny because there's so many other fucking things that are happening in the world, but we're like worried about. At this point, if a kid wants to go in a litter box, fucking go for it, because we have some bigger issues right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's I don't know. Is it a distraction? Is it just like way to kind of look over here and look at this silly stuff, so
and
we
then
can
do something
and we can like do this shit on this side.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it's actually happening. And when questioned, at the like trial, I guess, over the bill or act or whatever it was, they couldn't give any specific like events of this happening, any times, any places, any sort of thing, and just kind of being like, well, but it could, we need to stop it. And it's like, yeah, but are we focusing on the right thing here?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's real silly.
So speaking of silly things, I saw your OF page.
Yep.
Where you're a girl.
It's coming out. Yep.
With AI technology. Dude, that was crazy to see the video of the guy going like this, and then you have a screenshot over and it looks just like a girl live.
And the thing is that we've already kind of heard of this happening, where I've heard that like some OF like content creators will like hire people from somewhere else to do like the chats and things like that with people that they're hiring or doing whatever with, and it's like you never really know if you're actually talking to the person at all, like ever. I
think it's all AI at this point.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of funny because half of me is like, would people even give a shit? Would they even care?
What was that movie where he falls in love with
her? Yeah. Have you seen that movie?
I still haven't seen it.
Oh my God. That's a really good movie. And I think it's even more applicable now because it really does kind of like explore that idea of like, oh, I'm talking to this AI person, right? And does it matter that they're AI? As long as I'm getting sort of fed what I need, like I'm getting the attention, I'm getting some sort of emotional interaction, like, I don't know. I think it would come down to maybe like, do you quote unquote consent to this? Like, hey, this is an AI model, just like be aware that you're talking to like not this person. And, if people are okay with that, then, I mean, what are you going to do? But it is pretty crazy because I'm like, at this point, it's gone so far with like AI and social media. We have a study about social media that made me kind of think about some stuff too. And it's like, the world is in such a weird, different place, man. It's hard to understand.
It's crazy. Because of that, right? I looked up like, what are OF statistics, right? Do you know what the percentage of married people that are on OF that are users?
That are users?
Married?
Say like 75%.
89%.
God damn.
Do you know, based off of race, what's the number one race that is on it?
That's a good question. Race? I'm going to say either Caucasian or like Middle Eastern.
Yeah, it said white, about like 68%.
Wow.
So, everything else is a lot lower.
They be horny,
Do you know what the average influencer actually makes, or content creator?
Oh, I bet it's like fucking nothing. I bet it's like $30K a year.
A year, 1,300.
Whoa.
And the top 10% of OnlyFans creators are the ones that make all the money.
Wow. That's
so
insane.
It's so low. But I was talking to Amanda too. I was like, what do you think about San Antonio? Like, how many creators are just like local or local girls that are doing it, and they get like 400 or 500 guys just to make like some side change?
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, let's say, I mean, I feel like 400 or 500 would probably be like a lot, but let's say they do get 400 people.
Yeah.
And let's say
$7 a pop.
Yeah, $10,
per month, and then private content.
Yeah, it's $4,000 a month. Like that ain't fucking bad. And then, like you said, if you're doing some extra content on the side, that's another, I don't know, $2K. You're making like 6,000. Like, that ain't that bad.
Then me and Amanda started talking a little bit more, right? We're all about dopamine novel stimulus as humans, and if you think about like history too. We have to have that novel stimulus because that's what allowed us to explore.
Sure.
Right. So you kept on going up north,
I need more.
I need to see something different, and you would explore. And that's part of like the excitement path. How hard is it to retain people? Because they see your video content, and then it made me think like, that's why some of these women who start out as like innocent photos, they go into a little bit more, they go in a little bit more, because they have to push the stimulus
have to keep the people coming back, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For retention.
Yeah, I guess after a while it does become, I would imagine it becomes like, is it worth it, to do this over and over and over again? Or
it's like when fitness influencers are like big on social media, and like that's their life. Now they have to push their content more. They got to do this.
They got to take more supplements.
It was like watching that with the kids, bad influencers with the kids.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they're pranking each other, and they're going through these harsh pranks.
Yeah.
Like literally like faking that they're getting arrested,
like
for
kidnapped
something.
And stuff. Yeah. It's like, is this funny anymore?
No.
Are we having a good time?
It's crazy. So, did you know you could be in premenopause way before you're actually in menopause? What? Like years and years, like 10 years before.
I want to say, that I either saw what you said or I read something about that.
Yeah. So like in this podcast, I'm going to just think about like how many of our women clients are struggling between 35 and 45 who are in this pre-menopause phase. And it all starts in the brain. It doesn't start in the actual like ovaries like people think, because the signal in the hypothalamus goes down and it affects everything. And how many times like also birth defects, because that signal's there, happens like, that's why it happens later in life when there's a birth defect.
Yeah. Not to take anything away from that conversation, but it's like, it brings me back to like the testosterone idea. And it's like, how many guys are suffering from low T early also? There's in both ends, right? There's a sort of like, I don't want to say epidemic, but a problem.
There's
right?
a disruption.
There's a disruption.
Hormone disruptions.
Yeah. Earlier than it used to happen. Like I had clients who were my age, younger, that would go get tested and their T was at like 150.
That's wild.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on?
Some guy told me his was at 240, and I said,
God damn.
That's wild.
Yeah, dude. And it's like, same thing with women too. I have a lot of clients who are young or things like that. And it's like, I can almost compare them to like my older female clients. And I'm like, they almost have like more energy or more drive, than like you do. And you're 27, or it's like, what's going on here? And it's concerning, and not knowing.
Yeah.
Right. They just don't know. And I think, just like I did when I had low T, you just chalk it up to, oh, well, I'm stressed, or I got this going on, or I got that going on, or whatever. And then you finally take something and you're like, oh, fuck. Yeah. I just had no idea.
Yeah, dude. It's amazing. And then before we go in the study, did you know how chlorine gives you like that, like during summer, it'll dry your skin.
It's kind of real dry.
A little some people get rashy and stuff like that. Ooh. Did you know putting vitamin C before you enter the pool neutralizes the chlorine on your body?
Okay.
And there's a whole process that they explain on the internet, but it's actually pretty true. Like you just got to look at research and stuff like that, and the way bonds and stuff like that.
So like obviously, so I bet this would be a good idea if you have like a home personal pool. But I wonder if you go to like a public pool.
I bet you a public pool would be even better, because they put extra chlorine to make sure.
You're right. But isn't part of the chlorine like supposed to be there to like disinfect or take care of things?
But that's the hard part. Think about all the bacteria you have on you, right?
It's kind of like an antibiotic, right?
An antibiotic, exactly. You're taking off some stuff off your skin. And so now you look dry and everything like that. And the cool part is I saw that you can make a homemade vitamin C cream.
Oh, okay.
Right? And you just lather it on before you go out there and go in the pool. And
I could make a vitamin D cream. Hey.
All right. And this next week we announce pregnancy.
Yeah. Everybody at the public poll from last week to the week before. Just go check.
Yeah. But yeah, so vitamin C.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right. So we had 2 studies. The first study is teens with mental health conditions use social media differently than their peers, studies suggest. So I'll let you take over because
so this is the one that I was talking about. I was reading a bit of the article and things like that, and it was talking about how I think they kind of specifically stated like teens that have depression or anxiety disorders tend to be on social media like 50 minutes longer, I think it was, than their counterparts, and they also tend to do a lot of more like comparison compared to other people and things like that. And, you know, we talk about comparison a lot and social media in terms of fitness, right? Like everybody's trying to compare themselves. Well, you know, this person looks like this, or this person got this results and blah, 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 and whatever. But it kind of brought me even like more into the idea of it because social media is so new, right? I mean, Facebook was probably the first like social media platform, and even then it wasn't the way it is now, you know. Back then it was totally different. It had a whole different concept and everything, but this idea of social media and constantly being in connection with everybody, seeing everything, being able to sort of like nitpick what you show about your life to people and things like that, and then you know, if you do have anxiety already or are already depressed or things like that, I don't like saying this because I don't really believe it's true, but I feel like there's this sort of almost like addiction to the feeling of being depressed or anxious or whatever. Maybe addiction isn't the right word, but like a comfortability, you know? And so you kind of constantly seek out those sort of situations where you're like, I'm just used to being depressed, right? And so, you know, well, I just scroll through and it makes me sad again, you know? And it's not that I think that people like being depressed, but I think their body just becomes so habitually like connected to it that they kind of seek it out. And it's just so weird that social media even exists as like a concept, you know, and that we have to, it's almost like you have to use it at this point.
Do you?
I don't think you do, but I think that it makes it incredibly hard to do a lot of stuff. I mean, like,
I tend to disagree.
You think so? Yeah. I feel like even with social media now, it's like you go to the fucking, I don't know, like I had the party thing, right? That I sent everybody in. And even in that, you could like comment on shit and like post pictures and shit like that. And that's kind of fun. But even on fucking shit like Duolingo, there's like, you add friends and stuff. And I'm like, why? This is so weird that there's just this constant everybody all the fucking time thing, you know? And it's just insane as an idea that we are like sort of stuck in this world at the moment when it never existed even 20 years ago. You know,
where I disagree is, for example, I've taken out my TikTok. And the only reason I use my Instagram is just to look at fitness stuff. Yeah. Every now and then, a couple of memes here and there. I look at Reddit. And I don't think you really need it. I think in today, like if I'm in a business like ours, of course we need it just to put our footprint into whatever it is, right? Sure. Because you need to attract people. But the average person does not need it. The average person could go just fine reading articles, doing stuff, and it actually mentally may benefit them a little bit more because they're not subconsciously comparing themselves.
I've yet to see an article about social media that paints it in a positive light.
This is where I'll paint it in a positive light.
Okay.
Because it did speed up my timing of learning. Now you need to learn how to control social media for yourself.
True.
And make rules. So it's just like everything else. Right now, we need to practice more abstinence and control than anything else. So like food, right? Yeah. And pornography is so abundant that people are getting addicted. It's because they need to practice rules. Like, I'm not going to watch it. Just simple as that, right?
Just got to make a
make it whatever
a guideline. I don't know, something.
Only watch it on Monday and Tuesday.
yeah, for real.
You know, that could be your guideline, right?
Yeah,
That maybe that's your morals
or something.
right? I'm not going to judge you. That's what you do. Do your thing, and that's where the positive of social media is. It's you can learn something a lot easier. The problem is the noise and the comparison, and you not taking full control.
And then I guess
and allowing the algorithm to dictate who it is.
Yeah, and compounded with that, right? Like going back to the article, if you do have a mental disorder, it just makes it that much harder to do. And it's kind of like, okay, well, if you know that you have an issue, then don't put yourself in a situation to make it worse, right? And anyway, right? Like, let's talk about like fitness real quick. Like, it's like, okay, if I know that I really like going out and drinking or eating or whatever, then I need to make sure that I don't put myself in a situation where I go do that. Right. If I know I have anxiety and depression, I know I constantly compare myself to other people, then I need to not use social media quite as much. Right. And you just have to like control that aspect as much as you can.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, social media is not real. And that's what people need to realize. I literally found out because I was reading a Reddit article and someone like wrote something about, you see these couples and they go on vacations and stuff like that. And one person posted underneath, I literally saw a couple go to the hotel I was at, and I was there for like a week. They stayed one day, but I followed them and they did a bunch of things in one day, took the pictures and slowly dripped them out throughout the week to make it seem like they spent a week there. Wow. And people are really making it seem that they're happy and they seem that they're doing this or that when they're really doing nothing at all. They're just taking one day. That's probably all they had money for was that one day. And then they're trying to show like have this extravagant thing, or they'll do one day here and then they'll do one day at a different location, and they're just living through social media instead of just living in the world.
Sad, man.
It's crazy.
Sad. Yeah.
Increasing physical activity in middle age may protect against Alzheimer's disease. So as you increase physical activities between the ages of 45 and 65 could help prevent Alzheimer's disease, while inactivity may be detrimental to the brain health. I think this goes along with a lot of stuff that we talked about, like Parkinson's, everything. Movement is probably an exercise, the greatest predictor of longevity, because once you do those things, your body stops working. You give up. And you've seen people who are unhealthy body fats live longer than someone who's a quote unquote healthy body fat.
Yeah,
and
like
because of inactivity,
I know for
and less muscle.
A little while, like the topic of like, can you quote be fat and healthy, right? Was like a concept that was kind of going around for a little while and sparked some conversation on like fitness podcasts and stuff. And it's true, man, because I think just movement in general, in so many aspects, right? Whether it's mental health or physical health or social, right? Anything. It just improves so many different aspects. And in this case specifically, I think it was saying that the beta amyloid, right? Like is the protein that causes issues with Alzheimer's and like blocks neural pathways and stuff like that. And when you exercise, the amount of that decreases or like reduces, right? Even while having Alzheimer's, right? Not that it's like a cure, right? Or that it's ever going to like reverse it or something, but it's one of those things that we can see that it's both preventative and like an active thing to do. Correct. When going through, that type of disease. And, a while back we had an interview where they were talking about like Parkinson's and the research that he was doing on it. And how, exercise and rhythm and those types of things really help people with their like dyskinesia and their inability to walk or keep a pattern or how they'll like stutter, right? And kind of like stick in certain spots and not be able to move on. I think we both had patients who've had Parkinson's. I'm sorry, clients. and I'm sure you have, right? Seen an improvement in them whenever they're exercising more consistently or their ability to like walk or things like that. Even just, I don't even know what I'd call it, but like the brightness of them, like their like lucidity, it's so much different. And so I don't know, man. I don't know why exercise is so important. I guess we could go into that one day and just I could talk forever about that, but it's just so interesting how if we could peg it down to one thing, that would just overall improve almost every aspect of your life, it's exercise.
Also, that's the problem. We're always trying to peg things down to one thing.
True.
Like,
yeah.
If you don't sleep, there's an issue. If you don't eat decently, there's an issue. At the end of the day, movement plays a great role, and you got to be able to do it all. You know?
Yeah.
I want it all. I want it.
It's no more karaoke. Bro.
Oh, okay, my bad. Karaoke's over. All right, guys. If you like what we're doing, we're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe and hit the notification to turn it on. Our website is strengthsolutionspodcast.com. We have free blogs and guides and programs for purchase. Email strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com. Strength Solutions Podcast for TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Until next time, guys. Peace out.
See ya.